Welcome to Unfiltered Finance. If you're tired of the financial illusions and ready for the brutal math, you are in exactly the right place. Let's dive in. Did you know that in 2023, the average American wedding cost exactly $35,000? Yes, $35,000. That is a massive down payment on a house, completely burned in a single night of celebration. Couples spend hundreds of hours meticulously planning the flowers, the catering, the perfect venue, and the guest list. But sadly, they spend absolutely 0 hours planning their financial architecture for the decades ahead. The morning after the wedding, the fairy tale fades, and the heavy shadow of reality sets in. The result of this neglect? A staggering 73% of married couples cite financial stress as the #1 reason for their eventual divorce. Not infidelity, not in-laws, but the crushing weight of unmanaged money. Because when the honeymoon ends, the brutal reality of combining two entirely different financial histories begins. Often, one partner is a natural saver, carefully guarding every penny in a locked vault out of fear. The other is a spender, swiping cards freely and living in the moment without a second thought. And let me tell you a harsh truth. Love alone cannot pay a 24% APY credit card bill. Love cannot build an emergency fund. And romance will not save you from a devastating financial crash. Today, we are going to build the ultimate, bulletproof financial system for newlyweds, the blueprint for lasting wealth. We will cover the exact math of combining incomes fairly, escaping the toxic 24% debt trap, and why buying whole life insurance in your 30s is the most expensive mistake you can make. Let's dive in. Most modern couples, despite their best intentions, fall into one of 3 fatal financial traps. Trap number 1, the roommate setup. You keep everything 100% separate and just split the rent 50-50. But what if partner A makes $100,000 and partner B makes $40,000? A 50-50 split leaves partner B completely crushed, while partner A builds immense personal wealth. That breeds deep resentment. Trap number 2, the total merge. Throwing every single dollar into one giant joint account from day one. Suddenly, you have to justify buying a $5 coffee or a new video game to your spouse. You lose all financial autonomy. And trap number 3, the most dangerous of all, financial infidelity. Secret credit cards, hidden debt. According to a 2022 survey, nearly 1 in 3 couples admit to hiding purchases from their partners. In finance, secrets are an absolute cancer. To fix all of this, we must implement the yours, mine, and ours financial architecture. It is a 3-account system meticulously designed for complete transparency without sacrificing your personal freedom. Pillar 1 is the joint checking and savings. This is the central hub. All essential household expenses live here: the mortgage, utilities, groceries, and joint investments. Meanwhile, pillars 2 and 3 are your individual checking accounts, your absolute freedom. You can buy expensive shoes or drop cash on a personal hobby, and your partner cannot say a single word of judgment about it because the household is already fully funded. But how do we actually fund these accounts fairly? This is where the magic happens. Welcome to the mathematics of a healthy marriage. First rule, we do not split bills 50-50. Instead, we use a system called proportional contribution. Let's look at the actual math. Assume partner A earns $70,000 a year and partner B earns $30,000 a year. Together, the total household income is $100,000. That means partner A brings in 70% of the total income and partner B brings in 30%. Now, if your total joint household expenses are $4,000 a month, you split that bill based entirely on your income ratios. Partner A pays 70% of the bills, which is $2,800. Partner B pays 30%, which is $1,200. This ensures both partners feel the exact same weight of the household expenses relative to their individual earning power. It is mathematically equitable, and it completely eliminates financial resentment. But now that the cash flow is structured, we must build the defense. A marriage without a defensive financial strategy is a fragile house built on shifting sand, just waiting for the inevitable storm to wipe it away. Love is what builds the warm, beautiful house. But cold, calculated risk management is what keeps the roof from flying off. The absolute first priority, before you invest a single dime anywhere else, is the joint emergency fund. You need exactly 3 to 6 months of absolute bare-bones living expenses sitting in cash. If one of you suddenly loses a job, or a terrifying medical emergency hits the family, you do not panic. You use the cash buffer. This prevents 90% of marital fights. Defense priority number 2, eradicating toxic consumer debt. If either of you comes into the marriage with pre-existing credit card debt, it is no longer their individual debt. It is a threat to the household. The average newlywed carries about $7,000 in credit card balances. At 24% interest, compound interest is a monster working aggressively against you, destroying your wealth and stealing your future daily. You attack this beast using the Debt Avalanche method. First, you list all your debts from the highest interest rate to the lowest. You pay the absolute minimum on everything else and throw every single spare dollar at the highest rate toxic debt until it is dead. This requires absolute focus and painful sacrifice. You do not buy a new car. You do not go on a lavish vacation. You treat 24% debt like a life or death financial emergency, because mathematically and structurally, it truly is. Once you are married, and especially if you plan to have children in the future, your life insurance strategy must be locked down. But this is where 90% of young couples get scammed. Financial advisors, who are often just commissioned salespeople in disguise, will aggressively try to sell you whole life insurance. They will pitch it as a brilliant investment combined with insurance. Do not fall for it. Let's look at the actual numbers. A $500,000 whole life policy for a healthy 30-year-old might cost you around $4,000 a year, and the investment return is usually a pitiful 1 to 2% after fees. Now let's look at term life insurance. A 30-year term policy for that exact same $500,000 coverage will cost you about $300 a year. So you confidently buy the term life policy, and you have $3,700 left over every single year. The biggest question is, what do you do with it? You invest that $3,700 difference into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund like VOO or SPY. Historically, the market returns about 8 to 10% annually. Over the 30-year term of your life insurance policy, that invested difference compounds. At an 8% return, you will have over $450,000 in liquid cash. If you bought whole life, you would have a fraction of that, trapped in a highly restricted policy. Buy term and invest the difference. Always. Our final layer of defense is the legal architecture. Being married means the state recognizes you as a single economic unit, but the banks and the courts still need the proper paperwork. First, you must immediately update the beneficiaries on all your existing 401ks, IRAs, and individual bank accounts. If tragedy strikes and something happens to you, you want those assets entirely bypassing probate court. The paperwork ensures the money goes directly to your surviving spouse. Second, if you buy a house together, ensure the deed is explicitly titled as joint tenancy with right of survivorship. This legally guarantees that if one partner passes away, the house automatically and fully transfers to the surviving spouse. It completely prevents a lengthy, expensive legal nightmare for your grieving partner. With the legal shield in place, your defensive financial fortress is now fully built. Finally, if you are newlyweds without children, listen to me very carefully. You are currently in the DINK phase. Double income, no kids. This is the single most powerful wealth-building window of your entire life. You have 2 full incomes. The cash flow is at its absolute highest point, but your expenses have not yet exploded from daycare, diapers, and larger houses. But beware, do not fall victim to lifestyle creep, because when you feel rich, the shadows try to hand you expensive luxury cars and unnecessary designer watches. If you give in, this window closes forever. Instead, you must strictly maintain your single-person living standards and save 30 to 40% of your combined gross income during these first crucial 3 to 5 years. If you do this, you will build $1 million net worth, a full decade faster than all your peers. You build the heavy foundation now, so that compound interest does the massive, heavy lifting for the rest of your entire marriage. Many people believe that a truly successful marriage is solely about romance, passion, and perfect wedding days. But the brutal truth of the modern world is that love alone cannot shield you from the harsh storms of life. A truly successful marriage is about building an unbreakable financial fortress together. It requires brutal honesty, disciplined systems, and mutual sacrifice. So, set up your architecture today. Automate your defensive investments, and once the math is completely locked in, go simply enjoy your beautiful life. If you value the brutal truth over financial illusions, then hit subscribe today. To see how this math applies to your next move, click the video on your screen. I will see you there.